Hey, and welcome to Open, the show opening the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Brittany Schuyler, filling in for Darren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our boroughs and New York City. Coming up, the city's energy meets the beauty of nature in a breathtaking floral experience. A dazzling world of color and imagination is taking over the iconic New York Botanical Garden. We'll explore what the Orchid Show brings this year and why it's not to be missed. Next, a new mentorship program is bringing the outdoors to New York City kids. We'll break down how this program is helping young kids to explore their neighborhoods while building confidence and discovering leadership skills along the way. Then, the city announced a new plan to add offset bus lanes on Fordham Road, but transit advocates are concerned it may not go far enough to make buses faster and more reliable. We'll break down what the city is planning and what changes can help thousands of daily riders. Lastly, a new report reveals serious gaps in New York's ride-hailing system. Wheelchair users face longer waits, higher costs, and fewer accessible vehicles than other riders. We'll hear what needs to change to make rides fair and accessible for everyone. So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hey everyone, I'm Brittany Schuyler, and you're now watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We want to welcome our viewers to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast simultaneously on MNN's channels. You can stay connected with us on all social media platforms at Bronxnet TV. Now, some things have been going on throughout the past week. Let's take you through it with some Bronx updates. In local news, the third annual Black Girl Magic Day celebrated the leadership, resilience, and brilliance of Black women and girls shaping New York City. The event honored their impact across community, culture, and civic life. From inspiring speakers to young performers, the celebration emphasized joy, excellence, and visibility, reminding everyone of the power and influence of Black women and girls in the city's future. Let's take a look.
Black Girl Magic means power.
Black women and girls were celebrated at City Hall during the third annual Black Girl Magic Day. Hosted by Councilmember Althea Stevens, the event honored the leadership, resilience, and impact of Black women shaping New York City across community, culture, and civic life.
This event gives me life, it gives me energy, and it gives me hope to keep going.
The celebration centered joy, excellence, and visibility while reinforcing the importance of representation in city leadership.
To celebrate women and all the things that we do in the quietness and in secret and never asking for appreciation. This is our moment to celebrate each other, uplift each other, and really give us the strength to keep going, to keep doing the work.
14-year-old dancer Kamaya shared why celebrating Black women matters, especially at a young age. She spoke about honoring the struggles that made her path possible, using her art to show that Black girls are powerful, resilient, and committed to pushing forward despite the challenges.
People forget that, Black Girl Magic is alive, and even in the youth, that we still try to appreciate everything and show that we're just powerful.
Now, in its third year, Black Girl Magic Day continued to grow as a powerful reminder of the impact Black women and girls have on the city's future. Celebrated not just for their resilience, but for their brilliance, leadership, and lasting influence.
You are worth it. You can do so much, and you can't be who you can't see.
Reporting for Bronxnet, Brittany Schuyler. That's all for the Bronx updates. We have to take a quick break, but we'll have more open when we return.
eco-leaders. We learned that everything starts with ourselves. Then we have to educate ourselves. Then we have to build community and use our imagination.
Welcome back. The New York Botanical Garden is back with the 23rd edition of the Orchid Show. This year's theme, Mr. Flower Fantastic's Concrete Jungle, transforms the conservatory into a vibrant, city-inspired floral world, blending the energy of New York City with thousands of blooming orchids. Joining us to share a closer look at this year's exhibition and what visitors can expect is Patrick Nowak, Manager of Exhibitions Operations at the New York Botanical Garden. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, so I have to say I've been to the Botanical Garden in the past week, and so I've gotten a glimpse, and I am so excited to talk about the exhibition here today.
Fantastic.
So just to kick things off, the Orchid Show is back for its 23rd year. What makes this year's edition different from anything else?
That's a great question. Something unique about this year's Orchid Show is that it feels literally homegrown. It feels familiar. It's things that our visitors see every single day on their way to and from the garden. It's what I see to and from work every day. And so it's presenting our urban environment that sometimes we take for granted in a really new and exciting way, the NYBG way.
That sounds so fun. And this year's theme is Mr. Flower Fantastic's Concrete Jungle. Try saying that 3 times. How would you describe the experience that visitors can expect?
That's a great question. Visitors can expect to really be transported into a version of New York that comes straight out of Mr. Flower Fantastic's mind. And it is colorful, it's bright, it's surprising at times, but it's mostly really clever and playful. You're going to see a lot of the types of installations that you're used to seeing at an orchid show at NYBG. They're going to be large scale. They're going to have thousands of orchids on them blooming. Orchids and plants, the likes of which a lot of our visitors probably have never seen before, which is really exciting. But this year, what Mr. Flower Fantastic has designed for us feels really unique to the New York experience. So whether they're visiting from out of town or they're a native New Yorker like Mr. Flower Fantastic is himself, there's something for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Mr. Flower Fantastic is known for blending florals with street culture. So tell me, how does that come to life inside the conservatory?
His affinity for that like pop and street culture could not be more positively and clearly represented in the show. We literally have built New York City streets and neighborhoods and subway stops, bus stops. It's not just representing the street culture that he loves and he loves to portray in his work. It's literally bringing that street to life inside the conservatory.
That sounds so amazing. And now let's talk specifics. Like I mentioned, when I was there was one particular installation, which was the taxi cab, which when we were there, it was for a press conference and everybody was taking photos with it. Everybody was taking videos of it. And that's just one of the exhibitions or one of the installations that you'll be able to see throughout this exhibition. So tell me, what are some of the other New York City inspired installations?
Yeah, so we have really activated with Mr. Flower Fantastic the entire conservatory. So there are 11 total houses and different installations, photo ops, New York City moments throughout all of them. So we journey down into a tunnel that takes us out of a fictional subway stop. So you'll see some of those elements that you see when you walk down into, say, Bedford Avenue. If you're getting out to come to NYBG, that's my stop every day. So you're going to see those. There's a pizza slice shop. His imagination, his version of what you would be selling at an orchid-inspired pizza shop. There's also a bus stop that you can sit at, and with a route map that has a list of orchid-inspired names. So there's a lot of cool little things like that.
That sounds so fun. And now let's talk about upkeep, because we know you can't just, those flowers didn't just pop up out of nowhere. And the installations, you couldn't just drop them there. So tell me, what does it take logistically to maintain thousands of orchids throughout this exhibition?
That's a great question. It is no easy feat to maintain an exhibition like this throughout the period of time that we have it open. Luckily, we've had 23 years as an institution to perfect it, so we've got a lot of it down. The installation time is shockingly small. So between the holiday train show, which happens every winter, and the Orchid Show, we really only have about a 3-week turnaround. So there's a lot of pre-planning to make sure that we get the conservatory completely built out in time. And then once the show is open, a lot of it falls to our amazing horticulture team that are inside the conservatory every single day, watering, pruning, switching out orchids as time permits, and as the show goes on, that need comes up a little bit. So we want to make sure that there's always something beautiful and incredible blooming, and there's no shortage of it.
Absolutely. And now, while these are beautiful photo ops, I'm pretty sure there's an education component to it as well. And one of those could be orchid conservation. So when guests come, what are they going to learn about that?
Absolutely. Orchid conservation always has been a huge part of the Orchid Show in terms of what we like to share with our visitors. And it's also, plant conservation in general is a huge part of NYBG's mission. So there is signage throughout the entire conservatory, some of it specific to the Orchid Show and the Orchid Show elements you see, and a lot of it also related to our permanent plant collections that you'll be seeing in those galleries. And there's a lot of really fantastic information, interviews, audio, all of which can be scanned by QR code. And that really unlocks a huge amount of content to help our visitors learn about orchids and orchid conservation.
I feel like this exhibition is already filled with so much, but there's another component as well, which is the conservatory after dark for 21 and over. Tell us what we can expect. I need a new date night spot, so tell us everything we need to know.
Absolutely. This would be perfect for that. So on select weekend nights, starting later in March, we have DJ April Hunt, who will be coming and spinning for us at our Orchid Nights. Orchid Nights are always super fun. We do them every year with the Orchid Show, and this year will be no different. It's going to be really lively. What we're really trying to create is a block party here at NYBG. We've got the New York City streets inside the conservatory, and now we're going to have music and food and drinks to go along with that to really bring the whole thing to life at night, which is a really different and special experience versus the daytime.
That sounds so fun. And now tell us a little bit about how essentially the Orchid Show reflects New York Botanical Garden's broader mission.
Absolutely. This year's Orchid Show, as I've mentioned, it feels so close to home, both literally and figuratively. And as an institution that feels far away, you know, especially for folks who live in more central areas of New York City, but we are still a part of the Bronx. We always have been, and we always will be. And it is a celebration of the way that we can remind ourselves that cities have green spaces, and those green spaces are vital. NYBG is one of them. We also support and collaborate with a lot of other green spaces in the Bronx and beyond, community gardens and all kinds of parks in the Bronx watershed and everything like that. And now we're representing that in an exciting new way inside the conservatory.
Exciting indeed. And as we wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about where can people get tickets? How can they come see this exhibition?
Yeah, absolutely. I would point everybody to nybg.org. You'll find everything from ticket prices, select dates and timing for those orchid nights we talked about, as well as additional information about weekend daytime programming, the shop, all kinds of stuff. It's all on the website.
Perfect. Patrick, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today. This sounds so exciting and can't wait to check it out.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For more information, you can visit the website at nybg.org. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open after this.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with Bronxnet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At Bronxnet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated Bronxnet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with Bronxnet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
Welcome back. Kids don't always get the chance to explore nature, but a new program from the Fresh Air Fund is changing that. City Explorers pairs students ages 10 to 14 with mentors for hands-on outdoor adventures across New York City, from parks and gardens to waterfronts and iconic landmarks. The goal is to build confidence, leadership skills, and lasting mentor relationships while showing that nature isn't just upstate, but right in their own neighborhoods. Joining us to talk about this exciting program is Nicole Johnston, Senior Director of School Year Programs at the Fresh Air Fund. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Of course. So let's start off with the fact that the City Explorers is here, it's in the borough, it's for the children. What inspired you to launch a program that brings this experience directly to the city?
Sure, thank you. So this program really launched from a lot of conversations we were having with youth in our programs, with their families, among staff members, of figuring out, youth go to our sleepaway camps in Fishkill, New York, and in Harriman State Park in the summer, but what about the rest of the year? How do we introduce them to all the amazing outdoor opportunities that are right here in New York City? And how do we allow them an opportunity to try out their skills that they learn at camping and to try those skills here in the city? So we really wanted to bring that opportunity here. So we're doing monthly visits to different places in New York City to experience the outdoors together.
That sounds so fun. And now, in that, what are some of the gaps that you feel like are missing for students nowadays in the city that you think the City Explorers helps to address and close those gaps?
Sure, definitely. At the Fresh Air Fund, we really prioritize social emotional learning. We believe that it's really important for youth to have opportunities to build skills and that outdoors is the best place to do it. So when we're planning City Explorers, we're thinking about how are we building leadership skills, how are we building friendship skills, how are we building exploratory skills, just opportunities to try out new things and have places where opportunities arise that you can, do something you haven't done before, things like ice skating or bird watching or going on a hike. So we were really excited to bring those opportunities to youth. And something we know is that there are so many outdoor places here in the city to explore, and perhaps they're 15 blocks away from, where you live, or perhaps they're 2 or 3 subway stops away, and not all New Yorkers know about them. So we want to be introducing youth in our programs to all those outdoor opportunities that exist.
I think it's great that you start them young, and something that you mentioned was, friendship skills and leadership skills, and I think part of that could come from the mentorship aspect of it. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me maybe how children are chosen as mentors. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Sure, definitely. So City Explorers, we're very fortunate to have amazing mentors. These are volunteers who are giving their time to be part of the program. And many of them are actually Fresh Air Fund alumni. So we have some of our alumni who have come back to volunteer. And the advantage of having alumni is cannot be understated. They are a huge part of our program, and they get to show our youth, I was in your shoes. I went to Fresh Air Fund camps. I perhaps lived in similar communities or went to some of the same schools as you, and now they're, in their careers, so they get to share their careers, their growth in the city, and all of our mentors are just from different backgrounds and have a lot of great stories to share with youth. And at the Fresh Air Fund, we really believe mentorship is so important. So not only in City Explorers, but also in our College Connections program, we have volunteer mentors supporting you throughout our programs.
That's amazing, and I love it. And it's funny, that's what I was going to ask you right here, is that half of the mentors are alumni of the program. How important was that to be able to build that full circle moment?
It was extremely important. We're so grateful to our alumni for wanting to come back, for wanting to give back to the Fresh Air Fund and to stay involved. So we prioritized it in our recruitment. We tried reaching out to our alumni. And in the future, we're going to be recruiting more mentors, and we're definitely looking at our alumni base as one source of our future mentors. It was incredibly important that we had representation of alumni from our programs as mentors and City Explorers.
And so now looking at it from the mentee side, what impact have you seen from them working with somebody who once walked in their shoes?
Definitely. I think one thing I see in the youth and City Explorers is an openness to learn new things, to go new places, to explore new opportunities. And I think the mentors really demonstrate that and they model that. Not all of them have been to some of the places that we're going in the program, and I and other staff members haven't always been there either, but really showing that openness of a willingness to learn, a willingness to say, hey, I've never been on this subway line, or we got to take the ferry. Many of them have never been on the ferry before. I got to go on the ferry. And the mentors really model what it looks like to be curious, to learn, and to explore these new places.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the program intentionally gives students leadership roles like navigator and planner. So tell me, how does this structure work within the program, and what's the reception that you're seeing from that?
Definitely. We really value both choice and leadership in the City Explorers program at the Fresh Air Fund. So we actually start each session with an icebreaker, a team building activity, and then we also have youth choose their role for the day. So as you mentioned, we have navigator. That's where a youth helps us figure out, okay, how do we get to the subway? Which subway line do we get on? Oh, okay, now we're going to be taking the ferry. How do we get there? They help the whole group navigate there. And of course, we print out maps ahead of time and we have a route planned, but we really ask the youth to show us and to lead the way. And then another role I really have enjoyed seeing is the photographer role. So we have digital cameras that youth use, and they really document each experience from their eyes. And it's been really cool to see the pictures and to share them with families as well. And then we also have the hype person, or energy captain as we call it, and that's someone who, if we're on a long walk or if we've been waiting for a little while for our tour to start, they're making sure the group keeps their energy high and reminding everyone, how to stay positive and giving them health tips as well, like drinking water.
It's funny because I think a lot of times, especially now when we think about the children now, you think, okay, the phones, the social media. So for kids to come and to sign up for this program, I think it's a great feat. But also, at the end of the day, they're still going to be kids and they're still going to want their phones and want their social media. So, like, what is the reception and what changes have you seen in these students since joining the program? When they first come in, are they hesitant to maybe join in on the activities?
Definitely. That's a fantastic question. And we have definitely seen them use their phones less and less. In the very beginning of the program, we started by creating group norms and coming up with expectations that we can all follow together. And one of them was limiting phone use, because we think it's really important, if we're outdoors, to be enjoying the outdoors and seeing the sights and experiencing all the New York City sights that we've been seeing in the program. Something that's been really rewarding to me is seeing the friendships built in the program. I do think we have youth from 5 of the Fresh Air Fund's 6 camps in this program, so not all of them knew each other going into it, but considering they're seeing each other 10 times this school year, and for long Saturdays, they're very fun, but they are long days, they've really been building friendships amongst themselves.
That's so great. And now something else that I'm interested in is, when we think of nature, even sometimes when I think of nature, you think of upstate, right? You go upstate, you go into the suburbs, you don't necessarily have that here in the city. So how, and you also mentioned you take the kids on the subway and they're experiencing different subway lines, which I think is actually I feel like some adults need it. Just like a trip to how to, navigate through different subway lines. But how does the City Explorers reshape what outdoor access and environmental belonging look like for young New Yorkers?
Definitely. So you mentioned the subways. We do want to make sure that all of our experiences are accessible via public transportation, because what we want for our City Explorers is for them to go home and share with their family, hey, today I got to go to the New York Botanical Garden. Today I got to go to Prospect Park. Today I got to go to Little Island, and to go to these places and say to their families, hey, for just a subway ride, we can go and have a whole day at all of these places too. So it's really important for us to make sure every experience we have is accessible for families, and that our youth are going home and able to share with their families, their friends, can we go to this place next weekend? Or, hey, there's a free opportunity to do this. Why aren't we going there? So it was really important to us that we were sharing information that families could take as well.
Absolutely. And now, how important is it for kids to see their own neighborhoods in these spaces of discovery and adventure?
Extremely important. One of the aspects of the City Explorers program is that we gave all the youth in the program what we call our Explorer backpacks, and they contain different things. They have binoculars and magnifying glasses and what we call our nature journals, where they can write about what they see. So we're really encouraging them, when we're with them in City Explorers, we're encouraging them to bring the questions we're asking back to your own neighborhood. If we're exploring Prospect Park or Central Park and we're talking about birds and wildlife that we see, okay, what about the park right near your home? What do you see there? Even if it's squirrels and birds, write about what you see and kind of start noticing those things. So we're really encouraging them to bring the skills they learn in City Explorers to their communities as well.
It's like Dora. I love that. Like their own little backpack. That is so cool.
Yes.
And I think it's also really cool that you now, not only are you going to get this time for exploration during the program, but now you encourage them to take it home, which I think is really fun too. And with that, tell me, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of City Explorers?
Sure, definitely. So this has been our first year of the program, and we're extremely excited to be growing this program in the future. We currently have just our first cohort, but our plan is to continue this program to serve more of the youth who go to Fresh Air Fund Camp in the summer, so that they can be part of this program as well. So in order to expand, we definitely are looking for more volunteer mentors. So we're hopeful that we can keep growing that and build this program. And we've also already partnered with some amazing organizations here in New York City, and we're looking forward to building more partnerships as well.
So all of this in the matter of a year, that is so impressive that it's like you have this great built out program, and it's like, hey, we're only in our first year. So I can only imagine how much more you guys are going to continue to grow from here.
Thank you, definitely, yes. And we are registering youth for camp this summer. So if anyone is watching this and is interested in registering their child, they can go to our website. If you're interested in being a volunteer mentor or donating to support our programs, freshair.org is where you can find all the information about City Explorers and our other Fresh Air Fund programs.
Nicole, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. This was great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
For more information, you can visit the website at freshair.org. We've got more open right after this.
We're gonna start the show right now. This is my favorite part. Ready in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, this is Angel, and I am one of the instructors for the in-studio production. Here at Bronxnet, we offer classes that can help you elevate, expand, and start your television career. All you have to do is sign up at bronxnet.org/education. For the past 7 years, I have been in various productions, spanning from talk shows, independent films, news reports, art displays, teachings, musical performances, and many more. Ain't that right, Angel? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angel. There are a lot of creative individuals that we're just waiting to sign up for the class. And if I may, can I also express Thank you, Angel. That's all the time we have left. Visit bronxnet.org/education and become a producer by taking the course. The class I offer is also in English, en español y también bilingüe. Nos vemos en la próxima clase.
Welcome back. Fordham Road in the Bronx is one of the busiest bus corridors in New York City. During his campaign, Mayor Mamdani pledged to bring back a full busway to speed up service. However, his administration has now announced a different approach, installing offset bus lanes designed to improve reliability and increase speeds. Transit advocacy group Riders Alliance has expressed concern, calling for a stronger redesign to truly prioritize buses. Joining us now to discuss how bus service on Fordham Road could be improved is Danny Pearlstein, Communications and Policy Director for Riders Alliance. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. And now to start off, as we mentioned, Mayor Mamdani recently announced that instead of the full busway that he promised during his campaign, Fordham Road will get offset bus lanes in the center of the street. So can you explain to our viewers how that's different from the original announcement and now what changes are now going to be impacted by that?
Sure. So if you go back in time a couple of years to 2023, the Adams administration at the time had proposed a busway between Webster and Morris Avenues where cars would have to take the next turn and trucks, buses, and emergency vehicles would get priority on the street. And there were offset lanes in the middle of the road fanning out in each direction from the busway, so all the way to White Plains Road in the east and to 10th Avenue, actually, Manhattan in the west. And they watered down that plan. And they watered it down because they got pressure from the leaders of institutions in the Bronx who don't live in the Bronx, right? 7 folks who don't live in the Bronx prevailed upon the mayor. At first they watered it down. That wasn't good enough for those folks. They scrapped the project entirely. And so now DOT is coming back, and the mayor was anxious to get something done. And so what they're starting with is what we felt at the time was a half measure. And so what we're concerned about is making sure that the mayor stays the course. And we do have a commitment now from him to stay the course, to get the project done right, to really speed up the bus and save folks on Fordham Road a ton of time.
And so when this announcement was made, your organization decided not to attend. Why was that important to signal publicly?
Well, we believe that riders in the Bronx and northern Manhattan that use Fordham Road, which is the Cross Bronx Expressway if you don't have a car, deserve the best the city can offer, right? So the city has busways in Manhattan. There are busways in Queens. There are busways in Brooklyn. More people in the Bronx per capita depend on the bus than in any other borough. There are no busways in the Bronx to this day. We think it's time for a change, and we think the mayor agrees with us, and we want to make sure he sticks to his commitments.
And so with that, do you see that offset lanes are a step in the right direction, or do you see that they're a compromise that at the end of the day won't solve any problems?
They are a step in the right direction, right? And I think most importantly, the offset lanes that extend down to the area by the Major Deegan Expressway along the Harlem River and to the Bronx River Parkway along the Bronx River, those are very important for getting bus riders through that commuter traffic, right? Having sat on that bus many, many times, I know how badly the traffic is snarled, not just between Webster and Morris where the busway is supposed to go, but near those highway intersections. And so we need both and.
Okay, so essentially a step in the right direction, but it's still not the full scope of
That's right. And you know, it's so important to get it right on Fordham Road because as the city points out, 130,000 riders ride the bus there. It's the second most heavily used corridor in the city. It's far and away the most heavily used corridor in the Bronx. And it's the east-west transit artery in a borough where fewer than half of households have cars.
Mm-hmm. And so if this offset lane goes into effect as expected, how will riders' daily lives be impacted and their daily commutes be impacted by this?
So we hope it works really well. right? We have a bunch of examples from offset lanes around the city that haven't sped up the bus quite as much as we think people deserve on Fordham Road. So that's why we're skeptical, but we hope it works very well, in particular around those highways, around the Major Deegan, around the Bronx River. But what we want to see is really consistent monitoring and a commitment to come back quickly. You know, if this season is not what bus riders deserve, we should have what we need next season.
So right here, you know, the administration has said it will reevaluate the bus design if it doesn't hit specific goals. So how important is that commitment?
That's incredibly important. That's the whole game, because the bus should be a lot faster, right? And the mayor, you know, in some ways he kicked off his campaign on Fordham Road, right? He came to Fordham Road in the end of 2024. He talked to people about why they had either voted for Trump or not voted at all, because they had so little trust in the government to improve their lives. And so he made a commitment to do so much better than that. Part of that is fast buses to save people lots of time. Not a little bit faster, but genuinely fast buses.
Right, and I like that you just mentioned not a little bit of time, because it says that they could improve bus speeds by only 20%. So is that enough to make a meaningful difference?
At least 20% is what we need to see here.
Okay.
And so we don't have a lot of examples around the city where offset lanes on their own met that criterion, but we saw with the 14th Street busway that we exceeded the 20% because we didn't just have priority lanes, but right, we had cars turning off the street to really allow bus and truck traffic and emergency vehicle traffic to flow smoothly and freely, and that's why that project is such a success. That's the type of success that people in the Bronx deserve.
So on Fordham Road, what would the most effective busway look like?
Webster and Morris are obviously, that's the densest portion, the area by Fordham Plaza, by the concourse, right? That's where traffic is the worst and where it backs up the most, where you see the double and triple parking that trips up the bus. So that's where we need, I think, the strongest medicine, essentially, to get the bus moving. But we also need to see the lanes effectively enforced elsewhere. And putting them in the middle of the road helps avoid that, you know, pickup and drop off problem. It helps avoid, you know, sort of some of the turning traffic. But we need to see automated enforcement with the bus cameras, like we've seen on a lot of routes. And we need to see respect for bus riders that we haven't seen before, frankly, in the city, and that bus riders really deserve.
You know, and so in that, what are some, not rumblings, but, you know, what are you hearing back? Like, what's the feedback from bus riders? Like, now hearing that the idea and the announcement has been shifted and adjusted.
You know, I think people want to believe in this administration. I think that's really important, right? The mayor inspires a lot of confidence. He talks about public excellence. Public excellence in this case means much faster buses that save people lots of time. And so that's what we will continue to strive for, because really, you know, bus riders have been so fed up, right? We saw bus riders gave the mayor an F in the last administration. This mayor doesn't want an F, right? This is a mayor who campaigned on improving bus riders' lives, which means saving bus riders time and money.
Absolutely. And from a rider's perspective, again, what does faster and more reliable buses really mean in terms of daily life and commuting time?
So it means improvements in life, right? We talk about money, you know, it means getting to work on time and not getting docked pay. It means getting to interviews on time and getting access to opportunities, getting to school on time, being able to take those exams, getting to healthcare appointments on time and not having to reschedule 6 months from now, right? There was an independent poll on Fordham Road a few years back and said, you know, almost 90% of the people they talked to from the surrounding neighborhoods wanted much better bus service. 70% supported the busway, right? The strong medicine. We did related research on Flatbush Avenue, which is a similar corridor in Brooklyn, and we found, you know, 90% of people had lost time in their lives because of delays. You know, a third of people had actually lost money that they could count. And about half the people said they would actually shop more and create more economic activity if they only could get out easier, you know, with a better bus service. So there's a real, what they call a multiplier effect to improvements in bus service. It improves people's quality of life, it improves the affordability of the city, and it improves people's economic opportunity.
That's really interesting that you break it down in specifics like that, because I feel like on an everyday basis, we don't think about necessarily how much time we're losing, how much money we're losing, but, you know, going back to time, right? If you have a plan, okay, I'm gonna go take a workout class after work, but now everything is delayed, you miss out on that workout class, you're probably gonna get charged, you know, a no-show fee. So it really is interesting as you break it down, you know, in real life scenarios.
That's right, and this is, you know, over 1 million people each day in New York, depending on the bus. We have America's slowest buses, but the highest ridership. And, you know, if you go outside of New York, we're famous for our subway. But the subway only serves roughly half the city very well. And in the Bronx, it really only serves you if you're traveling down into Manhattan. right? If you're traveling across the Bronx, up and down the hills, over the rivers, you're on the bus. And that's what's been ignored for far too long.
And I think that's also really interesting because a lot of people that I speak to, everybody always says, I'd rather take the bus than take the train. But then there are times where it's like, you know what, I have to take the train because the buses are so slow, they get caught up in traffic, they're delayed.
That's right. And we can do so much more with our streets than we do today, right? It's wasting public space to have double, triple parking, right? It serves a tiny number of people, but at the inconvenience of vastly more people. If you think about 100 people on the bus on Fordham Road, you know, packed sometimes over 100 people, and bus after bus, right? Because it's a bus, every bus could come more frequently, but this is a bus that comes fairly frequently because it's in such heavy demand, and it's packed morning, noon, and night. You know, people who don't ride it, it's like riding the L train at rush hour in Williamsburg. You know, it's like sitting on a summer weekend on the Cross Bronx Expressway and going inches, you know, every so often. But it's constant, it's year round, it's you know, every day of the week, because there's so much demand for that service, and it isn't living up to expectations because it's blocked, right? And for too long, the policy of the city has been, it's okay to block the bus. No longer. That ends with this administration.
Yeah, I really, again, I think about the Fordham Plaza because I do, you know, travel there often or travel through there often, and it's always just so congested that a lot of people too, that they're like, if I can avoid that area, I will avoid that because it's always so like packed up and jammed with traffic. But, you know, as we wrap up, I would love to hear, you know, essentially how can people make their voices heard on this matter?
Sure. So, you know, we are a grassroots organization, right? You know, I'm on staff, but I was a grassroots member for years before I came on staff, and that's true for some of my colleagues as well. And we are powered by thousands of riders all across the city, you know, joining us, you know, at our events. You can find us online, ridersalliance.org, on social media at Riders Alliance. And we have a community of riders working together to improve service. And we've won. You know, we have some real victories, right? The Fair Fares program, we won. You know, the congestion relief program, we won. We are committed to winning much faster buses. It's hard, right? It's a lot that needs to happen to speed up buses by 20% by 2030, which is our goal. And we believe it can happen with a partner in City Hall like we have, but we need to keep buses at the top of the mayor's agenda, right? You see him, he's getting pulled in all sorts of different directions. It's hard work to improve the bus, but we're gonna keep it at the top of his agenda. We're gonna do it by building the power of transit riders.
It's a hard fight, but it's not an impossible fight.
That's right, we've seen enough improvements in this city, you know, in the short time we've been around, 12, 13 years, we've seen enough to be inspired to do more, right? And we know it's possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for sitting down with us today.
Thank you so much. This is great.
For more information, you can visit the website at ridersalliance.org. Stick around. We'll be right back.
There's a new channel to explore, and it's bringing the classics back to life. During the day, relive the Bronxnet originals that sparked conversations and built community. At night, dive into the hip-hop throwbacks that defined the generation. One destination, two powerful lineups. Now playing on Optimum Channel 952, Fios 2138, and streaming at bronxnet.tv. BX Legacy, where history meets the moment.
Only 57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. %5% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. %34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. Bronxnet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the Bronxnet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, Visit Bronxnet.org to learn more.
Welcome back. A new report from New York lawyers for the public interest shows that for-hire vehicles in New York are still leaving riders with disabilities behind. Despite rules to increase accessibility, wheelchair users continue to face longer wait time, higher prices, and limited vehicle options, both in New York City and across the state. Joining us today to break down the findings and discuss how these disparities affect everyday life is Eman Rimawi-Doster, Senior Community Organizer for the Disability Justice Program at New York Lawyers for Public Interest. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
Immediately just reading that, I already think about the higher prices that wheelchair users face. I can't tell you how many times I pull up a rideshare app and, for a standard vehicle, it's one cost, and then you get an accessibility vehicle and it's completely different cost, and sometimes it's pricing people out. So I'm very interested in getting into that. But to start things off, tell us about some of the main disparities that the report highlights for wheelchair users requesting for hire vehicles.
Yes, of course. So oftentimes when people are using rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft, people are seeing, the standard car right at the top. But what we saw that wheelchair accessible vehicles are all the way down the list, and you have to scroll all the way down. And oftentimes the pet option comes before the wheelchair accessible vehicle, which kind of shows us that, pets are more important than folks with disabilities and people who use wheelchairs, which we don't like Uber or Lyft or any for-hire vehicle company doing that to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And now tell me, how did the NYLPI collect data for this study, and what does it reveal about the differences between accessible and standard rides?
Sure. So last summer, we had a number of our interns basically hail taxis over several thousand times to try to get that data. And they found that oftentimes the wheelchair accessible vehicles were all the way at the bottom of the list, but also it took upwards up to like 15 or 20 minutes to even get a ride. And so we saw a number of disparities with finding the ride and then getting the ride. But also we saw that, the farther upstate that we went, there were little to no rides at all. And so we wondered how many times there were folks with disabilities, especially folks who use wheelchairs, farther upstate, who might not be able to get a ride at all. And I know from myself going up to Albany, it was incredibly difficult to get any ride. And so oftentimes I'd have someone help me to get a ride, or have a friend or my husband drive me up there, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get a ride at all. So we found a number of issues with people getting rides.
And now, according to the study, what is the reason why Uber and Lyft deprioritize accessible vehicles?
I don't think that they see us as a good customer base. They don't think that they can even get customers with us. But there are almost 2 million folks with disabilities living in New York City, many of which use wheelchairs. And so I think that a customer base is just being completely left out of the conversation, because people don't think that we're going anywhere or doing anything, which is so far from the truth. We have jobs, we have lives, we have schools, we have, kids and parents, and, we go out with our friends and our families and just go out and do all kinds of things. And we should be able to have that feature of for-hire vehicles in whatever sense it is, just so that we can get where we have to go.
Right. You have the same lives and the same activities as everybody else does.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes people assume when you have a disability, you have no life. But I know I've been an amputee 13 years. I was diagnosed with lupus 27 years ago, and my life is constantly going. And if people saw my calendar, they'd be like, "Oh snap, that looks like a pride parade flag because you got so many different colors and things going on." And I'm like, "Yes, because I am that busy, and that means I have to have reliable transit." And that means for-hire vehicles need to be accessible to me because I also have a dynamic disability. Sometimes I use my walker like I did today. Sometimes I use my wheelchair. And I need a vehicle that's going to work for whatever needs I need met for whatever day that is.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but can we expand upon the challenges for riders with this disability outside of New York City when it comes to these vehicles for hire?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that going farther, the more and more we go out of the city proper, of the 5 boroughs, and a little bit in Westchester, and a little bit of Yonkers, the farther we went out, the less and less wheelchair accessible vehicles there were, and even farther we went out, there weren't any. And so that had us wondering, what are folks with disabilities, especially people who use wheelchairs, doing up in those states? And oftentimes they're relying on friends and family. But we know that's not possible for everyone, and we know that there needs to be a change in how many vehicles there are, the areas that they're in, and the access that people are getting or that they need,
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's talk about the Green Accessible Transition Act. What does it aim to do, and how would it, improve wheelchair accessible vehicles?
Right. So with the GATA bill specifically, we're doing 2 things. Oftentimes, we're sort of siloed in these little groups. You're like, okay, transportation here, accessibility here, environment here. But what we found with that bill is that we can do all of it at the same time. So making sure that we have wheelchair accessible vehicles that are also good to the environment. And so that's one of the things that we are so passionate about, making sure that we're not only working on accessibility, but we're also working on making sure we're not putting more fumes into the environment, and also not just the environment, but to the customers and to the drivers. Oftentimes people don't understand, especially when you're dealing with paratransit and accessoride, which is loosely connected to this, because we use vehicles. Oftentimes in those vehicles, the drivers and the customers are breathing in fumes that are incredibly harmful to them for hours at a time. And so, this bill is basically saying, you know what, we can do things in an environmentally friendly way where it's accessible to everyone to use, and so that people can get where they need to go, and we're not putting them and the environment at risk.
Absolutely. And now something else that the report suggests is banning surge pricing and algorithmic pricing specifically for accessible vehicles. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we saw that there's much more money for wheelchair accessible vehicles, and they want to charge you more because it's a bigger vehicle. But oftentimes there are folks with disabilities, and I know this for myself, that they're on fixed incomes, and so they can't afford that surcharge. And so we're hoping that we can come to a sort of even playing field, that if somebody wants to use a vehicle or someone needs a vehicle that's more accessible for them, that we're not getting charged a lot more simply because it's an accessible vehicle. Oftentimes people think, oh, well, you'll get supports when you have a physical disability. And I know for myself that that's not always the case. And so we need these companies to step up, but we also need elected officials to step up and support these bills as well.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned the surcharge, because you think about, okay, you already have a fixed surcharge for an accessible vehicle. Then you think about the surcharge they put on top of that. If it's raining, if it's snowing, if there's more than 5 people in the area looking for an Uber, just how much more you're paying, and that's not sustainable, nor is that affordable.
Oh, at all. And I know, a few years ago, I was counting how much I was, because when you use, especially with accessoride, you don't really get all the fares doesn't count for everybody. And I know because I work, I don't get any discounts. And I calculated 1 month, I spent $350 on my transportation, and not going anywhere additional, just going to the office, going to meetings all over the place, and then going back home. And I was like, wow, that's a lot. And I know a lot of other people, my husband, for example, who doesn't have any physical disabilities, he can use the train. We live near an inaccessible train station, so it's not a problem for him. And he used less than half of that. And so that shows just how much my disability tax costs me to just get around the city and do the things that I need to do. And it's not equitable and it's not fair to me because I want to be able to have the same chances and the same experiences as everyone else. And I'm just doing with different Barbie equipment. So,
Yeah. Tell me, how quickly could these policies change realistically if they were to be implemented? And what are the main obstacles that you're facing right now trying to get these changes implemented?
We've had to bring it back to Albany a number of times. And so our hope is that it gets picked up by more elected officials and actually gets reintroduced and then gets passed. We're also trying to work on a city resolution, so it's not just the state. And so we really need elected officials, especially elected officials that are interested in equity in transportation and equity for disabled folks living in New York. I think that, elected officials have a duty to us. We put them there, we voted for them, and so they need to work for us. And they need to look at some of these bills and say, okay, this bill is actually working for my constituents. And also, a lot of elected officials, the thing that they get complaints about the most is transportation. And in that is accessoride, and in that is for-hire vehicles. And so we need to see just how connected these things are and make sure elected officials are showing up for the people who are directly affected by it. And the people who are directly affected by this specifically are people with disabilities. And we vote and we show up. And so we need that kind of support.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I keep going back to the surcharge and just how much, and that's transportation alone. And I just keep thinking about how difficult that is. We already don't have a lot of accessible spaces in New York City. And now to think your alternative isn't accessible either. So I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today and bringing light to this issue.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if folks want to check out more about accessoride and NYLPI, we're available.
Absolutely. For more information, you can visit NYLPI.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewer, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast on Optimum Channel 67, Verizon Fios 2133, or watch anytime on the web at Bronxnet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Rena Valentin on Friday. That wraps up this episode for us. I'm Brittany Schuyler, and I'll talk to you soon.